You're listening to Creative Leadership with Heart, a podcast that inspires people to take action and be the leader they were born to be. I'm Coach Rico, and I'm known for coaching and training executives, leaders, founders, and high performers at Fortune 100 businesses, startups, and more. I'm here to answer your questions about leadership and personal development while also asking you questions that can unlock your untapped potential.
And everybody you meet can teach you something that you don't know. No matter if it's a child or a 78-year-old, who knows where they live. You know, everybody has something to share that you don't know.
Welcome to Creative Chutzpah. My name is Leonard Samuels. I'll be co-hosting with Rico Nazal, where we'll be interviewing artists and business owners in the world of creative. We hope you enjoy. Thank you for watching Creative Chutzpah. Hope you enjoyed it. I think you did. I saw a few smiles over there. All right. And make sure you turn into Rico Nazal's Creative Leadership with Heart. All right. He's pretty good. Okay. Give him a chance too. All right. And we'll see you next time. And make sure you nosh on something. You're too skinny. You're too skinny. Get out there and eat. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Welcome back to another episode of Creative Chutzpah. I am your host, Rico Nazal, and your co-host, Leonard Samuels. And today, we have Sally Montana, a photographer and director who owns her own independent creative business. So, Sally, thank you for joining the show. Welcome. And
Thank you.
Yeah, jumping right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey as a creative. What is it about the creative industry that got you excited about it?
That's a long journey. I started my career in photography in 1997. So 20, I don't know how many years ago, 27 years ago. Oh my goodness. I had in 7th grade, we had a school project where we were supposed to stage our favorite music video. And 2 friends of mine and I, we teamed up and we staged Queen, I'm Going Slightly Mad. I did the camera and they did the acting. And I was at 17, I was immediately hooked and I wanted to be a camera woman. And coming out of high school 2 years later, I was trying to get internships at any kind of film studios in Germany. Mind you, I grew up in a 1,500 people town.
Holy cow.
Holy cow.
Yeah, small town, big secrets.
Yes,
yeah.
Very, very rural area. So I couldn't get an internship anywhere until a friend of mine approached me and said, hey, this might not be exactly what you want, but I know a photo studio who's looking for an intern. And so I started doing that. And after 6 months, I loved it so much. They loved me so much. They said, okay, we're going to offer you a 3-year contract to do an apprenticeship. And the rest is kind of history. It was a very technical apprenticeship. I wanted to cover a little bit more of a creative aspect after that. So I moved to Zurich and I started studying the arts aspect of photography at the Zurich University of the Arts. Did a year-long exchange with the University of Cape Town in South Africa. That was very eye-opening.
You were traveling.
School of Fine Arts. Yeah, I'm all about the traveling.
Yeah.
And came back to Switzerland and started assisting and started doing my own jobs and eventually transitioned into just being a photographer until the itch got me again and I started applying for the green card lottery. And serendipity, if you will, in 2011, I was selected in the green card lottery. And within a year and a half, I moved to New York.
Oh, wow.
And that was a complete reset. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah. So you've seen a lot. Wow. So from Germany to Cape Town to Switzerland to the United States.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there's some
Switzerland in there. Germany, Switzerland, Cape Town, Switzerland, US.
Yeah. So what was it about those places? What was it about? You grew up in a small town, right? So of course, maybe getting more exposure outside of that. What brought you to, why Cape Town? Why New York? What was it about those areas that made you want to participate in the creative scene that was happening there?
Well, Cape Town came about because I was assisting a photographer in Switzerland, and he managed to get a job that took us to Cape Town for an entire month, shooting still life, no less. It was the Switzerland winter, and he only used daylight, so he told the client that we would have to go to Cape Town around the world to shoot whatever they were in need of. And I fell in love with what they call the mother city, and I wanted to come back. So it was University of Cape Town was really interesting because I started learning Swahili. I
Oh,
started
wow.
learning about, South African photo history. I started collaborating there with local students. It was just traveling is eye-opening, and that's kind of my theme. And then New York, I was selected for the green card lottery while I was on a 6 months road trip across the US. I wanted to do a project about Americans. So I bought an SUV, and I slept in the truck, and I traveled 6 months across the US. And while I was in Washington State, I received the notification that I was selected. And I thought, this is so interesting. I can look at all of the states to figure out a place where I would want to live. But I think ultimately I always knew that it was going to be New York, because that's what makes or breaks you. If you make it there, you make it anywhere, right? That saying holds true. And that's where, for me, the center of the photo industry was at the time. By now, I've moved over to LA.
Yeah. Wow. You did van life before van life was a thing, I
Yeah,
guess,
I was
huh?
just gonna
Yes.
say.
But I'm sure you saw and took a lot of amazing photos along the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that being said, like, what is it about creative? Like, what is your personal mission? What is the thing that, like, what do you see? Maybe this is a better question for a photographer. What do you see through the lens that keeps you doing it?
Ooh.
Ooh. I see people. And I think, based on my traveling background, there's it traveling just broadens your horizon so much that it's easy to see how everybody comes in with a different mindset, a different cultural background, a different approach of how to do things. And everybody you meet can teach you something that you don't know. No matter if it's a child or a 78-year-old, who knows where they live. Everybody has something to share that you don't know. And it's the storytelling, first and foremost, the meeting people, the sharing stories, uplifting people, sharing. The stuff that I do with my rodeo work is I focus not on what a lot of other photographers focus on, the rides themselves and the perfect picture of the cowboy on the bucking horse. I focus on the backstage, the cowboys getting ready, the anxiety that's in the air and the tension. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm really after.
You're almost capturing two different people when you're getting the backstage and then the
Yeah.
performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're actually you're exposing to the people like the reality of what it's like to do that. Because what is the movie 8 seconds? You get 8 seconds
Yeah.
to see them on a horse, but you don't see the hours, years, days, even minutes
Yeah.
This is a
before that.
movie called 8 Seconds?
Yes.
Oh,
It
is it like a
was
documentary or what?
It's
Oh no,
so interesting that you bring that up. Okay, so here's the backstory to that.
but we are talking about serendipity and opportunity. So
So 2 years ago, I went to my first rodeo, and I just had tickets for the event, but I didn't know anything. It was a gut decision to leave one day to the next, and I just had my canvas and my camera, and I walked up to the back gate, kind of lingering around, trying to figure out where to set up and whatnot. And this older gentleman walks up to me, and he says, "Hi, I'm John Growney." I'm like, "Hi, I'm Sally Montana." He's like, "Where have we met?" And we just connected instantly. And he said, "Come here, come backstage, so to speak, and set up your canvas." And he started wrangling the cowboys for me and said, "Okay, here's Dwayne, Cody, whatever their names are, get your photo taken." And everybody told me, rodeo royalty. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, do you know the movie 8 Seconds, which is a movie about a legendary bull named Red Rock who had 309 rides over, I think, 3 years, where no cowboy was able to stay on for 8 seconds. And in 1988, this cowboy Lane Frost had his first ride of 8 seconds. And this guy who let me in at the rodeo owned the bull Red Rock in the 1990s. So that was my moment of serendipity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very curious because you're coming from Germany and you come to the States. Like, what is it about the rodeo and the cowboy life that just like sings to your bluegrass heart?
Well, I grew
Because you
up
capture it so well, which is the ironic part about it for like so many people that live in the States. Yes, you're just saying like we want to capture the bull riding and this and that, but you're capturing the human aspect.
Thank you.
Of it.
It started off because I had a difficult moment in my life and I felt like I wanted to be grounded. And I said, you know what, I need to get my boots in the dirt, and I need to be with animals to just center myself. And a friend said, go to a rodeo. And it just drew me in, the serendipity and
Rodeos
the
are a
universe.
lot of fun. If anybody has not been to a rodeo, they are fun.
Yes, they are fun. They are a lot of fun for sure.
So you, our theme is serendipity and opportunity. And the one thing I want to go back to is, it sounded like you had a lot of opportunities to do certain things. Were there ever blockers or resistance to taking? Was there ever say like, I got to go to Cape Town, but I have all these other things? Or did you look at everything as an opportunity to take advantage of it? Like, how did you approach your career so far?
It was pretty much if it's not in the right time, if the gut feeling isn't right, then it's not the right thing. When I applied for art school, a lot of my friends asked, okay, so you applied for Zurich, which has a 10% acceptance rate. What are you going to like? What's your backup plan? What's your plan B if you don't get accepted? And I said, I don't have a backup plan. That's where I'm going to go.
All or nothing.
And all or nothing. And I think that was the determination was part of it, right? And for example, for the green card lottery, I think I applied over the course of 7 years. And I always said, I'll be selected when the time is right in my life, when I have either a partner who's willing to move with me, or if I'm not in a relationship and if my photography is advanced enough to sustain myself. And that's how it happened.
So for you, thinking about those things, what did success look like for you in those moments, and how has that, if it has, changed for you now?
Well, I want to say in the beginning, when I first started off as a teenager, success was a lot of escapism from improving myself to a critical father. Like many people do.
I think we all know that
wanted,
well. I know that well.
yeah, right. That's a shared experience of many people. As a teenager, I always wanted to travel for work. And then when I started assisting, I worked with this photographer who traveled a lot for work. And those were my role models. So that was for a very long time, my definition of success. And that's what I live these days. And as I have that, and as I grow more into who I am and more self-aware, success for me is to have a work life and a personal life that I don't need to escape from. Like that, I need to go on vacation. I need a time out for 2 weeks. I don't want to have that, And another aspect of success for me is to uplift other people. Everybody has someone who helped them up the ladder. And I think as people climb up the ladder, they should help the next person who's coming after them up, right?
And
Make
you
it
were entertainment? Oh man, look at you.
I know. Well, that's
What are these
yet
words you're
another
saying?
aspect of success. It's like that thrill and the challenge of you have everything honed in and you get 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 3 minutes with talent. That's a different
Sometimes 8
story of
seconds.
success.
Right?
Sometimes 8 seconds, exactly. Nice one.
So there was something really important you said there, and I think super in like what people try to aspire to, and is that you don't have to take vacations to escape from anything. So for people who don't know what that feels like or how to create that, what does that mean for you? How have you created that for yourself?
Ooh, I want to say it ties into the early escapism. I always pick projects, personal projects that took me somewhere. I did a project about there's this town in Pennsylvania, Centralia, that has an underground mine fire going on since 1962 and it's still burning. I did a story about a death row inmate in Idaho, all while I still lived in Switzerland. And so those were my vacation trips with a purpose because I also needed some solitude. And that kind of morphed into a balance.
You have very
Yeah.
spotlight projects. Are you planning on like maybe highlighting these, these things more? I'd say like a coffee table book. I don't know how appealing a coffee table book of that would be, but working with a
Well, okay.
journalist and putting stuff together.
I think the topics I picked, I still find interesting,
Yeah.
but my photography has changed so much, and my approaches to projects has changed so much in the last even just 5 years, not to mention 10 or 15 years. So if I look at the photos, I still like them, but I keep thinking, oh, I could do this better, I could do that better, or I would do that differently. It's like just cover more ground instead. you know while I was doing these in my escapism mindset, I was very focused on, okay, I need to achieve this, I need to achieve that. So ultimately, some of my, I don't really want to call them regrets, but some of the things I would do differently is cover more aspects and be less focused on the 10 key pictures that I want to get. But at the same time, you're in a different country, you're dealing with solitude, you're feeling lonely, you have to do everything yourself, you have to call the director of the prison to ask for a photo, and everything takes so much energy that I had to really just curl up into that solitude. That at the time I did the best I could, but I think if I were to do a coffee table book these days, it would be about rodeo. Because this is really a project that I feel like, okay, this is where I want to be in my storytelling.
So that's interesting, right? You said if you look back now, you still like some of them, but it's evolved. How have you evolved, and how has the industry in general evolved? And like, how would you keep up with it?
I think the industry has changed a lot. Like back in the days in the 90s when I did my apprenticeship in Germany, there was more money for productions than these days, and people would start their day with a bottle of prosecco and then slowly get started, and the clients roll in at 10 or 11, and it's very easy peasy. I think the industry has, especially in the last 5 years, evolved to a lot more diversity, which I think is great. I remember in 2001, I was assisting in Munich, and I was working with this photographer who got a production for Marlboro. And we were supposed to travel to Wyoming for 2 weeks and photograph for Marlboro. And ultimately, the client called him and said, you need to take a male photo assistant because a female photo assistant is going to distract the cowboys too much. And so I don't remember if I was confirmed at the time, but it was such a disappointment. And I can't really imagine this would happen that way at this point. But we still have a long way to go. I did a list the other day about photographers in entertainment, and there are like maybe 31-ish, 32 bigger names who do the major shoots, and 23 of those are men and 9 of those are women. And then you have 2 black men in there. And the majority is white men. And I don't want to bash this, but I would like for the doors to open more and be more inclusive to that.
Yeah, because you're, besides from doing a lot of the lifestyle shoots and all these, I don't want to say really important shoots because they are really important, and not to take away from the entertainment because that's also important. But I know that you also do entertainment shoots, like the big Hollywood production level shoots for, I think you did something for Stars not too long ago.
I did Blind Spotting season 2 for Stars. I did Miss Marvel for Disney. That was one of my first big photo shoots. I did Criminal Minds recently and SEAL Team for Paramount Plus. So yeah, wow.
And what do you bring to those type of shoots when you're doing the 8-second cowboy rodeo and really getting into like the heart and core of that personality, and then you are working with a like Hollywood actor and you have it's such a different mindset. How do you like jump from one to the other?
That's one thing I always loved. Is like when I first came to the US from a very small market, Switzerland, where photographers are expected to do a lot of different things and wear a lot of different hats. When I first showed my book in New York, everybody was like, okay, you need to decide, like, are you going to do still life or reportage or portraits? If you do portraits, are you just going to do studio portraits, or are you just going to do documentary portraits, storytelling? And I said, okay, I definitely know that I want to do portraits, but I find it really hard to decide if I want to do one or the other because there are different aspects I like in each one. I like the honing the light and crafting everything. And I also like the reacting to something that is presented to me and going with the flow and diving into somebody else's world. So the switching between cowboy dirt and Hollywood stages, that's my balance, really. I love it. I love wearing those different hats.
And that's really its own rodeo as well.
Yes, it is.
For anyone that's done the Hollywood shoots, it is a rodeo.
It is really a rodeo. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've lasted 8 seconds though. I want to say that.
Yeah, sometimes you only get 8 seconds with the talent.
Exactly. Oh. Exactly.
So coming back to a little bit about your journey, what would you say, if there was one, it has been the biggest challenge for you over the course of your career, from the Queen video in high school up until April 22nd, when the day we're recording this, 2024?
Biggest challenge, I want to say, was moving to New York at 34 years old with $2,000 to my name and no contacts whatsoever. And it was mid of January. It was really cold and gray, the worst time of the year. And after having, worked as a photographer full time for a number of years, I went back to square one and I started building contacts of who can I assist? What's going to pay my rent? And looking back, I have no idea how I survived it. I don't know how I paid.
Yeah, no, New York is hard.
Rent.
New York is really hard.
It is really hard. And there were a lot of, teary nights and loneliness, and never a question though, whether I should go back. I remember when my friends dropped me off at the airport in Switzerland, one of them said, if it doesn't work out, you can always come back. Like, just keep that door open. And I always got mad at her because I was like, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I know this is my way. Like there's no turning back. But it was still hard.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you, or we're gonna ask you like a piece of advice later. But I do want to say, like, for people that are either feel like they are struggling or aren't willing to put in the work, what would you say? Because that's, you said at 34 years old, starting back at square one, I'm sure you are a primary on a lot of projects already, and now going back to assisting. Like, what would you say for people, like, if they're not feeling like they want to start back at square one?
That's a
What
great
advice would you give
question.
those
That's
people?
hard.
Ooh, okay.
Anybody that all the people that are under 30, just know that there is a good chance that you have to humble yourself. But yes, go ahead, Sally.
Stay humble and do put in the work. I totally get it when you already established something and you don't want to go back to square one. That's a really hard decision, and it also I know that I had a very privileged situation there, that I don't have children. I never wanted children. I only had myself to take care of. And I didn't have any kind of debt because, college education in Europe does not cost an arm and a leg like it does here. So I didn't have any student loans or anything. And I very much understand that there are people out there who don't have the privilege to start from square one. I want to say to those people, keep something that pays the bills and do the side hustle, because while I did start on square one, when I was assisting, the further I grew into it and the more I got my own jobs, I was working almost full time with this one photographer, but I still had my own business and my own jobs to tend to. And sometimes I would go, I would assist on the morning shoot and then have my own editorial portrait scheduled for 2 p.m. And I would just pray to the lords above that we would end on time so I wouldn't be late to my own shoot, or I would go to my own shoot straight from the airport coming home from another job. And it's tough. It's tough when you are trying to build your own business while you work for somebody else who has a very demanding schedule. And it's a lot of sleepless nights, but it's worth it.
I'm going to ask you a question. And this is the question that I would ask those same people who didn't want to go back to square one, is how bad did you want it?
For me, it was not a knowing how bad I want it. It was a knowing that there is no other way, that is my path, period. Just like when I applied for art school in Switzerland, I didn't have a plan B. I don't have a plan B. I know this is my path.
Yeah,
so
that reminds
I do
me
everything
of
in my
no.
in my power.
Yeah, it reminds me of an interview. I think it was with Oprah. Will Smith had, and they asked him like, what if this didn't work out? If acting didn't work out, he's like, there was no plan B. Like,
Yeah.
this is it.
This is
Yeah,
it.
and
He's
so
right.
so it's almost like that's what I also tell people about, is like having a plan B can be good and bad, because if you have a plan B, that often will hold you back from plan A, because you always know you can fall back onto plan B.
Yeah.
But know that you do whatever. It's different than knowing you'll do whatever it takes to make plan A happen. So it's just a shift. You may have to do the same exact things, but it's just a shift in thinking about plan B means, oh, I'm falling back and this is what I have to do. Doing whatever I need to do is now I take a job with somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a job for someone else, but it's helping me unlock my own business, build my business, and that's ultimately what I'm. And so when I ask how bad do you want it, that's the premise of that question, is your plan B was never your final destination. And some people, unfortunately, their plan B turns out to be their final destination.
Yeah.
You weren't willing to settle because you wanted your own business.
That's when I first moved to New York, a lot of my friends say, well, why don't you take a job in a restaurant or work as a barista somewhere just to make ends meet? And I was like, if I do that, then I don't have the pressure to make it in photography. I want to have that. Yeah, I might, it might hurt for a long while, but ultimately I'll have more drive if I have to make it with the money that I make in photography, no matter what I do.
Absolutely. And no offense to any baristas, servers,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
because that's the new, isn't that the New York story? You
Yes, it
go there
is.
to be a dancer, photographer, so, like Broadway, and you end up working in a
Just
coffee
like
shop.
you go to LA to become an actor and
You
it's
gotta
or
have
a
a story. You
photographer and
can't
it
have
doesn't work
everything
out for
handed to
everybody.
you.
Yeah.
So going back, I do want to ask the question. So, what is the biggest piece of advice you would give to maybe not even someone now, but what would you tell your younger self, knowing everything that you know now?
What would I tell my younger self? Go to therapy earlier. um, yeah, because I think that for me, that stalled my start a little bit, to be honest. I see so many people who, grew up in or around New York who or here in California who went to Brooks, who are already in that industry and who do incredible work in their early 20s. And in my early 20s I was still getting some stuff out of my system that I needed to get out of it. So um I want to say to my younger self, every little step that you take is still a step. So just whatever you do, don't pause. And if it doesn't have to be big, but if you want to, journal 2 sentences if you can't get out more, but it's still progress. If you want to take one photo a week or one photo a day, whatever it is, do it, you know?
That's great advice. And there's something that reminded me of another conversation I was having as you were speaking, and the theme of opportunity and also innovation is what I've been getting from this conversation. Is that right now, because you said there's some people in their 20s doing brilliant work. I think right now is the golden era of creativity. And that can be, people
Yeah.
can disagree with that. But the reason why I feel that is because everybody has access now,
Yeah.
right? So, like, there's so
Yeah.
many tools that make creativity easier, some for good, some for bad. But if you're really willing to learn and refine your craft, you can go to YouTube. You can go to, like, there's so
Yeah.
many like online tutorials. Tools are accessible now. They're web based. Like, you don't need to have all these other things, right? Like, even when I was in high school, I had to edit with like 2 VCRs because
Yeah.
I didn't have like a reel to reel
Oh
machine,
yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
But now kids can like download an app on their phone and
Yeah.
edit like full length like video and AV. So that's what
And
I
that's
mean by,
the
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
that's the technical part, right? You can learn anything of YouTube or masterclass or creative live, whatever the websites are, right? um but you can also connect to other people so much easier. Like when I
Mhm.
was in my 20s, it was, it was barely the start of the internet for me. And there were no forums like that where it wasn't easy to find. And now you have all these amazing, you know, communities that offer advice and exchange and collaboration. And that's something that is, really a positive in that for sure.
Yeah, and shout out to Reed, who I interviewed last year. Um, to your point about access, like, use people like us,
Yes.
LinkedIn, right? Like, now, like, younger generations have so much more access. If they want to, if you want to LinkedIn message your favorite director, do it,
Yeah.
right? If you want to find them on social media and Instagram and send them a DM, do it, right? Like, you
Yeah.
have so much more access now than we did growing up, where like you had a pager, and what are the odds of us finding
Pager.
someone's pager number, right? Like, are you gonna find Francis Ford Coppola's pager number somewhere? Probably not. Are you gonna write them a letter, like a snail mail letter, because you found their address? Probably not. So
Yeah.
the access, the training, the collaboration, ability to collaborate, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That all of these things are why I feel like right now is a golden era of creativity.
And as someone on the go, what's your go-to camera?
Ha! My go-to camera. So I used to start off on the CNRs on the 4x5, which is no longer my go-to. I had a Mamiya RZ 6.7 for a very long time, and then I switched to a digital Hasselblad 31 million. And by now I shoot on Sony, and I love it.
Nice. So if you did give someone like, what if they wanted to look for their first camera that's not like point and shoot? Like, what's a good camera for someone who wants to get into photography?
Because I'm still using the ones that you do this.
Yeah.
And then you just
get the little Kodak $8.
Leonard's like, I'm still using this.
Yeah. You only get 12 shots, and they got to be good.
Yeah.
The best camera is the one that you carry with you, right? So if it's your phone, that's a good camera. It might not be something that you might be able to sell, although, you know, a number of years ago, the New York Times printed an iPhone picture on page 1, right? And then you see all the Apple commercials that are shot on an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
So that's really good. I want to say, well, the Sony that it's so much more affordable these days, right? Back in the day, or just a number of years ago, you had to spend $30,000 for a Hasselblad body, and then $8,000 to $10,000 per lens that you wanted to own. And by now, the kids are down to probably around $5,000 that shoot really good. You know, I use my Sony both for the Rodeo. It's really good in high ISO, but it's at the same time it has 61 megapixels, and the files are beautiful and crisp. And if you have good lenses, there's so much quality, right? And I understand that $5,000 is still a lot of money, so you might want to. I don't know all the models.
It's not $30,000. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
No,
exactly.
It's not $30,000, and
Which what it used to be. Yes.
Sony is probably a good place to start if you're looking.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say.
I have one more fun question to ask. Do you have a hobby that people who don't know you might be shocked to find out?
Shocked. I don't know if shocked. I've been doing karate for the last 7 years.
Look at that New Yorker right there doing karate.
I mean, the New York streets, you still gotta be careful. Head on a swivel, right?
Yeah.
But
the Ninja Turtles wears off. Go ahead.
Yes. I get my sai out, you know?
Yeah. Eating a pizza and doing karate. Dang. Sally.
That's me. That's me. If you see that, yeah, come walk up to me.
Nice.
No, it's what I like about it, and that's another piece of the advice that I would like to give to people is find a physical outlet that involves body and mind. Like, I could not run on a treadmill because my mind would go wherever I don't want it to go. But when I practice karate and I do my kata, it's a choreography, and everything is involved, and I shut down the entire world outside of what I need to do right here, right now. And that is a mindset that I can go back to on set. Like when I'm on a key art shoot, when it's like 5-minute call for talent, I usually go off to a dark corner and I do one of my katas just to center myself. And it's really good. For me, it works, you know?
Nice. That's a great advice. Mind and body.
Yes.
Yeah, because we get locked into these little rectangles for so long.
We do.
You know?
Yeah, we do.
We forget that you got to actually do something physical. It's not just enough to like listen. The music is great, but like your body's just gonna melt into the chair.
Yes, exactly. Do something that requires you to.
After this call, I'm gonna take a walk. But yes,
I was gonna go lap swimming next.
Nice. So where can people find you? Like, we'll put all the links into the show notes, but if people want to work with you, if people want to contact you, what's the best way for people to find you?
Well, my website is sallymontana.com, and my email is on there, info@sallymontana.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Sally Montana. You can find me on Instagram, SallyMontana_photo. And I want to say email is the best. I see emails pretty immediately, whereas if you DM me on Instagram, it lands in the requests folder, which I don't check every day, and then it might just be delayed. So to all the people who prefer DMs on Instagram, please send me an email instead.
Yeah. Or send a raven.
Yes, exactly.
Or write a letter like we talked about before. Find my pager number.
Yeah, as you're driving in the truck, and then a raven's just like trying to catch up to you. Yeah. Well, it takes chutzpah to be creative, and you are definitely have tons and tons of chutzpah, and no one should mess with you, definitely, if they weren't already before. Not today, that's for sure. And thanks for sticking with the rodeo theme in every walks of life that you're doing, just with all your business ventures and traveling. And I know the travel is such a big part of what makes you.
Thank you for having me. It was truly a joy being here and a fun conversation. Thank you so much.
Super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you, Sally, again for joining us. This is Rico No Soul, Leonard Samuel signing off. Thanks for joining us for Creative Chutzpah. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching Creative Chutzpah. Hope you enjoyed it. I think you did. I saw a few smiles over there. All right. And make sure you turn into Rico Nazal's Creative Leadership with Heart. All right. He's pretty good. Okay. Give him a chance too. All right. And we'll see you next time. And make sure you nosh on something. You're too skinny. You're too skinny. Get out there and eat. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creative Leadership with Heart. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. If you're ready to make huge, lasting change in your life, then what are you waiting for? What will your life look like if you took action today? What would it look like if you didn't? If you're serious and you're ready, book your free strategy session today and let's make your future a reality.